fellow travelers, and welcome to The Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and I will be your gracious host and guide along this way. And have I got something exciting for you here today? Well, I certainly hope so, because I am certainly excited. I have got something new and different, and I am aware that over this last few episodes there has been a lot of different, and we will get back to our regularly scheduled programming starting next episode. But today we are celebrating when I started watching TV series, if it was X-Files, and it was Lost back in the day, and these had very long seasons, maybe 24 episodes and stuff, and they had a sort of mid-season, so they had mid-season finales, and in a sense this then is a poetic mid-season finale. It is also episode number 42. The poem that I have made a soundscape to and everything, who some of you, those my fellow travelers who has been fastidiously following the way for some time now, might remember that the finale episode of season 1, number 21, called The Captain of the Showmanship, this is also styled in this way. It's a poetic soundscape audio play experiment, and I got some good feedback from that, and we are doing another one here right now. And I'm going to not waffle on too much here, just to say that of course 21 being one number of coming of age and whatnot, legal age in some countries, and we are now reaching 42. This episode is called The Way and the Universe, and 42, as we will explore later, has been associated with the answer to the question of what is the meaning of the life, the universe and everything. So, with this in mind, I would like to flip the normal goings on that we do, where we deliver the main part of the content, the meat and potatoes, towards the end. We will now, after this tiny preamble, leave you with The Way and the Universe, and I will return and do a little summary wrap-up of where we are at in this giant project, which is the second season of this show, which now has majorly overtaken season 1. So, without further ado, let's step into the sonic world of poetry, where we do a mythopoetic exploration of the dawn of time through the lens of showmanship. I hope you like it. Once upon a time, there was no time. No time, no space, nothing, no thing. There was no time, no space, nothing, no thing. Then, Big Bang. Immediately, time and space faces forever pressed together, dancing our reality. The great cosmic big top. 14 million years and still standing. That is a good run. No posters, no advancement, no crowds or passers-by. One moment, no place. From nowhere to now, here. One moment, no place. From nowhere to now, here. Next, everything in embryo, like oak trees in acorns. There, in potential, like oak trees in acorns. There, in potential. Moments, movements, and space between, swirling, curling chaos, already the flavor of form. Swirling, curling chaos, already the flavor of form. The big top was up in a flash. With it came the spotlight of existence, its circle of light, the ever-moving present moment, going the distance along the ruler of time. All around the spotlight's cone, ever-present dark. All in creation gets its allotted time and space in the spotlight of existence. In the fast expanding big top, things came into being, lasted, often aeons, changed and appeared to go away. Everything was change. Change was everything. Clouds of dust coagulated into stars, seen by none, then burnt away. Some big enough to collapse to black holes, which couldn't be seen had there been eyes to see. Even light couldn't escape their gravity. That's serious. 10 billion years later, there came a pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam, the stage for the main attraction, the greatest show on earth. Life. Life entered through the curtains and came into the ring, dancing primitive, chaotic dances, vibrations and pulsations, simple life creations, vibrations and pulsations, simple life creations with no eyes watching. Pre-show, a 3.5 billion year continuously running performance. More like performance art than good acts, not knowing when an idea had played out its novelty value. Microscopic single-celled creatures, freely sharing and taking each other's DNA into themselves. Continual transformation, fluid change, growth, without much direction or structure. Little more than a membrane away from fluid. Little more than a membrane away from fluid. And not an eye to see, until one cell swallowed another, which refused to die. One cell swallowed another, which then refused to die. Like the much later Jonah in the Leviathan, it survived inside the membrane of a beast. And now it went quick, in the very slowest way. Two became one, the one joined many. Many of one together became new ones, made of many, and soon there were many of them as well. The two became one. The one joined many others. Many of one joined together and became new ones, made of many, and soon there were many of them as well. Multicellular beings entered the spotlight. No one paid attention, still no eye to see, and if there were, they missed it. For the revolutionary transformation was internal. But the result couldn't be missed. The Cambrian explosion. A second, not quite as big a bang. Something new, something complex, entered into the spotlight of existence. Proper animal acts entered the ring, and finally, eyes to see on complex beings in the sea, creature radiation, explosive, fast creation. Novel creatures in the ring, which was filled with water. Strange, hallucinatory creatures in forms so strange and unfamiliar. The exclusive only water act show lasted until 400 million years ago, when new acts arrived, crawling from the pool, with brand new attractions of lungs and land legs. The land animals, a dinosaur menagerie, reigned supreme for the longest time. Great attractions, biggest, heaviest, feathered, egg-laying, dangerous, fast, smart, with the biggest teeth and necks and claws ever seen in the ring. Creatures, each with their own majestic time in the spotlight of existence. Each species performed only exclusively as themselves. Predictable, some would say. You knew what you got, which was good. Every creature played the truth and nothing but the truth. The mud skipper acted mud skipper-like. The tiger, burning bright, and no pangolin woke to think, I am done with this pangolin thing. I want to be a wolf. Yes, no pangolin woke to think, I'm done with this pangolin thing. I want to be a wolf. No surprises, just themselves, complete with no apology, no actors in zoology. Change was slow, but change was coming. And outwardly, most insignificant of apes, but carrying something extra inside. Something extra on the inside. Another, not quite as big a bang, the smallest difference, like a butterfly flapping its wings, and the least predictable thing in creation arrived, walking upright into the spotlight of existence, a harbinger of novelty, the shape of things to come. A harbinger of novelty, the shape of things to come. Some 40,000 years ago, the curtain parts, the spotlight hits, a woman in a cave. She paints a figure, human-like, with antlers on its head. She strokes the ochre on the wall, and not a word was said. Deep inside the cave she chants, she heals. She is the very incarnation of living human folk, the one who shows, the one who knows, this world and those beyond. She shows them all themselves. She shows them all themselves, reflects them all, reveals the world, shows life, mystery, hope, and grit to open human hearts.
The tribe they sit around a pit where sacred fire burns. She faces them, they look at her, they drum. Flutes beckon, music stirs, passions deep, raises spirits from deep inside. They dance, they know the steps, habitual, their tribe's own sacred ritual, a new thing in the world. She pauses in the dance, the shared attention, that human extra penetrates the trance of the tribal few. This is also new in the spotlight of existence. The shared attention, that human extra penetrates the trance of the tribal few. This is also new in the spotlight of existence. She is shaman. Breath is fast and heavy. She clears her throat and roars, a primal scream, first like animal, but the roar it modulates to song. Still, it could be whale, or could be bird. Then finally she forms, the final form of sound, the final form, that's word. Words are heard by all who are around, swirling, curling order, with full flavor of form. Swirling, curling order, full with flavor of form. The tribe watches, the origin of story, the hunt, the birth, the death, the child, the magic, and the world. And soon enough, in cosmic time, Shaman and her tribe created brand new things, turning wolves to dogs, then teaching them to dance, maybe wearing tiny hats. A brand new kind of animal act is presented in the ring. The spotlight moved along, the ruler made of time we get to almost now. "45 years ago, it hits the velvet big-top drapes that parted, and I slipped into the world. I am on. I am showman. Breath is fast and heavy. I cry when I come in. This is my life, my act, my way, my 15 minutes in the light. From second one inside the bright, all is of the act. I have to make the most of it before I fade and slip back into the night from whence I came. I want to be ready. I don't want to get halfway through and realize I wasted half my time not being present in the spotlight of existence. Get it right first time around, for no one knows if management lets any one of us back into the ring. There is a great shout of joy inside. I'm gonna find it and let it rip. Take time for silence and be me. Be mindful of the crowd, but mostly I'll be me. Not waste my time or theirs. I'm sure this is the way. I have so many questions in the time that's given to me. I want to grasp the running order, know the history of the show, glimpse major themes and structure, understand the show's success, how it reinvents after almost dying off, one show away from cancelled. It's almost been shut down 5 times. Last time, 66 million years ago, the show's success is waning at the moment. It's a sixth extinction thing. Animal acts are dropping off the bill faster than ever, and the acts and actors in the ring at this very moment in the spotlight of existence, it is us who are to blame. But we humans are all actors. We don't have to be ourselves. We can be anyone. The roles are many. We choose and play. We got capability to shift and change our way. Change ourselves, be someone new, be something new. Before us, human folk arrived. This was not the thing. With us, change became obtainable. 66 million years ago, the great collapse, the almost closure of the show, was caused by a giant asteroid, maybe two, a mega volcano. But the dinosaurs that died that time, the dinosaurs couldn't change. This time, it is us. It is we who are the asteroid. But we can change. I hope my act can make some tiny change. Like that famous butterfly. Strengthen the show. How? I don't know. But such is the way with hope. Everything is change. Change is everything. I hope for change for good. I hope my act can make some tiny change, like that famous butterfly. Strengthen the show. How, I don't know, but such is the way with hope. Everything is change. Change is everything. I hope for change for good, before the spotlight of existence moves on to other players in the center ring, and I again will face the final curtain, and all will fade to black. I again will fade to black.
Right, there you have it. That is millions and billions of years just wrapped up into a 20-minute little poetic exploration of the way and the universe. There are a whole lot of details and things in here about many that became one, and the one that became many, and all this stuff that perhaps I can explicate at another time, but for now I will let the poem be what the poem is. As soon as we start to try to explain what the poem is, then it stops being a thing in itself and it starts becoming just some sort of explanation. And if I wanted to explain something to you, then I would have, as you no doubt have figured by now, as I of course can go on at great length. Now, getting back to this peculiar coincidence, or is it a coincidence, that we ended the episode, the first season, on episode 21. That adds up to 42, which we, as we mentioned in the beginning, and as those of you steeped in the histories of science fiction and comedic science fiction of the ever excellent Douglas Adams, who in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, towards the end of all this, they managed to extract the answer to the meaning of the life, the universe, and everything, and the big machine spouts out the answer, and the answer is 42. So in of course everyone's scratching their heads and they don't quite understand what the significance of this is, and it turns out that over the eons that the machine has trying to work all this out, it's kind of like we have forgotten what the question was. So the answer and the question is tied together, much like understanding and meaning is tied together. If you don't understand something, it isn't meaningful. So that's why we always, in our shows, have to aim to make sure that they understand what it is, or at least that they understand something in it, and then the meaning will come. And that's perhaps how it is here. Like they have the answer 42, and does it mean anything? Not if we don't fully know what the question. So you have to pose a real good question. So yeah, episode 21 was a fluke, or was it? Maybe it was not. Maybe this is connected to the improbability drive, which also features in the same series of books, where the more improbable something is, the more likely it is to happen, using the improbability drive. But anyway, I thought that I'd take this opportunity to just do a little bit of reflection on some of the work that we have been doing here on this here podcast. Lately there has been my work with Jay Gilligan has been reflected a few times in here. 2 of the episodes in the recent 5 or 6 have been featuring him. And also there was a little crossover episode there with the Hideaway Circus people, so we all got to hear some different voices on here, and I have had some indications that people like that. I just heard from my friend Pedro Tocas today from Portugal, who really enjoyed this conversation. There are people who listen to this podcast find interest and solace in the different things that we do. So some episodes will probably speak more to you than others, and some people are, like myself and Pedro, very, very excited about the particular details and the particular little structures and aspects of quite putting together a show. For instance, we can go on endlessly about that and the creative process, and this interests me so much that there was a little bit of that interview. Well, no, it's not an interview actually. It's not an interview. It's a conversation between me and Jay about a common thing, which is to put together a show, to create a meaningful show, and a show that is worthy of being opened in New York City. And all this, the pressure is on, and then we're making this show, and that conversation, I think I'm going to expand. Maybe we'll make a little mini series out of that, where we have conversations that comes out. Maybe it comes out weekly for a period of time or something, and it might be released simultaneously on YouTube and on here on the podcast, which I might also see if I can finally get my finger out and get all these episodes up onto a YouTube channel, my own Captain Frodo YouTube channel. But I was thinking, like as one does when you've reached some arbitrary, or maybe not, milestone, as we got to episode 42 and we have a Poetic mid-season finale, that what is it really that we are doing here? What ties together all these loose things that we're talking about? Well, for one, is that we're talking about the way, and I'm more and more coming to understand that this book that I've written, which I'm reading from for you and commenting on as I go, it really is the sort of philosophical underpinnings of a practical method. And a practical method I have, of course, been delving into more and more with all the work that I've been done with you guys. But I was just trying to sort of sum up what is it really that the way is. And I think trying to put it into words, that the way sort of springs from a simple idea. And it is something that I have felt and been drawn towards my whole life. That there's just something more going on. Like this thing, that there's depth in things, that there's more than meets the eye. That is just something that I find incredibly fascinating. I have always been fascinated by depth, that there is something more, something lying beyond whatever is going on, that there's something more to everything, not just what meets the eye, but what meets my mind and the feelings, all the feelings that arises in me when I engage in this process, when I look at the world with this in mind. And yes, it's also about the context and how something is completely interconnected with everything around it, and ultimately connected, to the whole world. So discovering or focusing on this quest for depth is to kind of understand how something fits in, how it belongs in a context, and how it relates to everything else. And this feeling that I've had that everything connects up, and that there is more to anything that you look at. Like whatever it is that I think about something will always be a diminished kind of version of it. This has made me, and then of course I like that there are, to know or to imagine that there is some groups of people out there, some communities that understand this better than others. And I've already gone on in episode, was it 3 or something, where I talked about Rudolf Steiner and some of these philosophical traditions. And in fact, as I've mentioned before as well, one of the big sort of early explorations where all of these philosophical ideas found their form was through me writing stories. I've written all these different stories, and I've tried to write several different novels that are in different levels of being complete. But very early on, I got bogged down in not just describing these, because that was centered around a secret society, and I love this level of that there is organized system of knowledge that is connected directly to the performers and show folks such as ourselves. And I just love that if there was something like that. And of course, this podcast is filling that gap, because I have not found anyone that explores it in this way. But to me, when I watched The Mandalorian, I am a Star Wars fan, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I am a Star Wars fan, and when The Mandalorian came on and he says this is the way, and this podcast was already well underway by that stage, I was blown away when he meets the armorer, this awesome woman who's a blacksmith that creates things from Beskar steel, and she knows the prophecies, and she knows this kind of stuff really tickles my fancy, as we say. I love this kind of secret societies, and I love symbolism. I love metaphor. I think that metaphor, to be able to see one thing as another one, I really believe that's how we human beings think. We only understand something by seeing one thing as something else, and then we gain an insight into it. And because we're always likening one thing to another, saying this is like this one, or this and this is the same, they will always be the same, only at an aspect of it, and there will be differences as well. And that leaves this openness to there's always more to understand. That is what I have tried to do here in this season here. I'm looking for depth, and in the stories that I was writing, there's always this sort of, I guess there's this thing which I see again in The Mandalorian, where there's a way, there's a code, and there's a deep lore, and there are powers on the edge of the supernatural knowledge, and there's a community outside of the normal one. And if that does not cover the circus community, then I don't know what it is. In 2000, I was invited to the Australian Circus Festival every second year. Back then, Tony Rook, the godfather of Australian circus, organised an extraordinary noise there. I'm going to leave that in so you can hear. This is raw and live. He organised a festival on his property in the middle of nowhere in Lone Star in Tasmania, and all of our circus performers went out there. And after me working with him in Glastonbury, he invited me to come there, and I arrived. And I'm thinking of this now because a guy called Steve, just posted a link to me performing my tennis routine as it was back then in 2000. And I really felt there when I met the Australian circus community, and I really felt like I had come home. this was my tribe. I did not fully know that I'd been searching. I mean, I had, but I kept thinking, oh yeah, this is it. And I traveled as a street performer, and I met a spectacularly amazing Shane Hultgren, the Space Cowboy, and I met Shep Huntley and Tiger Lil, that same very festival, that was the first time we performed together as the Happy Sideshow, trying to reinvent what at least the Australian and the world's public thought about sideshow, which I think we did pretty well at. I mean, look at myself, I'm still a sideshow performer, but it's almost like you can't notice it because we've changed the way of it. But anyway, I felt like I had found this community, and that we were a community on the outside of the normal. We all went out and we did our things, and we made people laugh around in the world, and then we would gather together again in this forest, and we would have a week, or 10 days or something of creation, where we'd be teaching each other, and we would hold lectures, and every night we would have open stages where we would just jam out acts that wouldn't make sense to a normal audience, but the things that were particularly funny at the Bebop or Blue Bar open stage that we had at night, and to come on every night and try to readdress and redo and just change all of the sort of parameters of what people actually normally like to see. You deliberately try to trip each other up or not respond the way that you should. And that was all appreciated to this incredible level just because it was 200 circus performers in the middle of nowhere. No phones. There was no phone signal. I'm pretty sure that he'd invested in expensive equipment just to make sure that nobody could get on their phones. We were just there, just together. And the intricacies of the connections that was made during this time, I still cherish it to this day. And I guess there I had long conversations together with Reg Bolton, who was at that time working on his doctor's thesis in circus called Why Circus Works, and to talk to elders who had such deep knowledge of it. And I was like, I loved all these things, and I love to have these conversations with other performers, and I guess I always wanted something even more, something that's like, because I've always felt, and one of the future projects that we're going to do on this podcast is to explore the shamanistic origins of the showman. This was what I explored at length in a very rudimentary way when I look back at it now, but I had a blog which still exists, but it's not active, called The Illuminated Showman. If you look that up, you can find what now seems like some just random notes on the links between showmanship and shamanship. And this will be a theme of a mini series that will come once we have come to the end of The Way of the Showman, this season 2. And anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, that we're sort of connecting together, and that I wanted something that was even a bit more like on the edge of the religious, where with ritual and with some ceremonies, something that ties us together in a way, and that justifies us and fills those things that all human beings has, where we find pleasure in singing together. Like if we're having carnival songs and stuff. So I wrote some of those. I wrote songs on and wrote poetry about these things, and that'll come out all here now. And I think I'm going to put some of these things up as a sort of gifts to those people who support me on the Buy Me a Coffee. I've worked out that there's some ways to put stuff up there, and that'll happen, I think. Anyway, the simple idea of what the Way of the Showman is that I have felt, or more even, I've sort of known that there was mythopoetic depth to performing. It was just a matter of looking and thinking, and not so much draw or create these connections, but to unearth them like a kind of archaeologist. I knew that it was there, because depth, as I've talked about, it's about connection and about intricacies and about context. That's where it is. And I just had to look around. I had this feeling and I look back at notes now that I find here that comes from the middle of the 90s, where I'm writing these things, and I see some of these concepts that I'm talking about here are already there, very vague. I just had to look around. I knew that the territory that we are in here now existed. I just did not have a map, so I didn't quite know how to find it. So, I picked up the mantle because I realized no one else was really kind of doing this thing, because it was something that was coming from me. I'm actually re-listening to the Fellowship of the Ring right now, read by Andy Serkis, the guy who played Gollum in that excellent movie that Peter Jackson made, the movies that he made. And of course Tolkien was the great mythopoeticist, mythopoet, I don't know, that when you read those, and in there Frodo says this beautiful line, and I just listened to that this morning actually, lying in bed, so I woke up a little bit early and I listened, and he says Frodo says that I will take the ring although I don't know the way. He doesn't know the way how to get to Mordor, but he says I will take it. And I guess that was kind of how I took it up. I was going, all right, we're going to start this. And I wrote those stories and got sidetracked along the way because I knew I didn't have enough of the ideas. So slowly I managed to kind of eke out bits and bits and bits of what I have told you about in this whole season here, and what I told you about last first season. And now I'm doing it again here, trying to explicate it. There's depth there. I know it's there. And what's kind of been interesting as I have been unearthing all these things is that my explorations of this carnival underground and the mythopoetic liquid foundations of meaning flowing breath just beneath the sort of sawdust covered path that we all walk, and when we go to festivals and events and gatherings, this has been going on inside me in many different directions. And it's like I said, it's not like I've just made it up. It's been like I knew that it was there, and I've found it. And as I have been reading now and deepening my reading lately, like I've been reading Ian McGilchrist, his extraordinary book, The Master and His Emissary. I just finished that, and it's just mind-blowing. That I couldn't recommend that enough. And Hans-Georg Gadamer, the philosopher that backed up what I thought. And then lately I've been reading John Dewey, the American pragmatist philosopher, and also a textbook, Introduction to Aesthetics. And I've just keep finding these nuggets that I have just shared with you here, that I have thought up and found myself through poetry and through the triangle eye, and I don't know what kind of odd ways that I have unearthed this stuff. But now I realize that there are people way cleverer than me that have just thought a lot of these ideas before me. So now, if nothing else, if I were to write a thesis about this, I can back it up. I can say all these things, and then I can back it up with the work of other philosophers and other thinkers or whatever. So, yeah, I could see it that I've been a sort of Johnny-come-lately to these ideas. That maybe I am in the eyes of academia. But since all that matters is that I know what's true for me, and I know that I dug that up, and that they too, smarter than me, has found that these truths and these ways of analyzing what a show is or what art is and so forth that we've all delved into over the last 21 episodes and will continue to do for another 8 or 10 episodes or whatever, that all that I feel when I think about this, that I'm grateful that my ideas are not just idle speculation, or if they are, that I am in very esteemed company in thinking some of these things. It's not this out there. So I take all of this as an example of how I'm on the right track. The wisdom of the way of the showman is there to find. It's not just random. So that means that this philosophy thing that we've been talking about here is making sense. And the practical side of all this is how to make it into work. That's also something that we're going to explore in a future season on making meaning. That is something that I'm currently taking notes and sketching out so that we can talk about meaning and understanding and how to flesh out the depth of the work. And I have, during this last season that we are in the middle of, towards the middle of more 3/4 of the second season of here, I have found that through my work with brilliant people, with and just notably here now, I mean, I've worked with excellent folks on lots of different styles of projects, but there's 2 projects that have just opened, and I've mentioned them before. One is a one-man circus, which is a family show with Morgan James that just opened, and we've now, with that show, we've won two awards. The last one was the Best Children's Show, and it's really interesting to have made that, and then comparing that with the work that I did together with Jay Gilligan, which you heard about at length last episode, where we talked about all the stuff that we did. It's really interesting because that's more like it continuously is entertaining, Reflex, but it's still a much more arty and an adult show. It's such a weighty thing, and it's beautiful now to see that where we've said there's a few different things. We set up this story that goes through this show about the history of juggling, and it ties it all together. And there's this pivotal moment where he sort of shows you that Jay Gilligan is not at the end of a 4,000-year long line, but he's at the very beginning of juggling as an art form. And we had this idea that we wanted to happen, that when then certain pieces of the show happen after you've heard all those things that we tell you in the beginning, in a poetic and in storytelling, and it's fun and it's ridiculous and it's absurd, but we go, if we place these little seeds along the way in the right way. And we've been following this philosophy that I have made, and I'm asking questions about structure, and I'm asking questions about material and character, and I'm asking about depth and feeling and emotion, and how is the will represented and the truth told through the tricks. And I go, if we do all of this the right way first, then the people will genuinely understand it and be moved when you juggle 3 sticks that are stuck together with a rope. And towards the end of the show, we do this beautiful, Jay does this beautiful juggle with balls that basically vanish in his hands, but along the way they produce all these images of confetti falling and feathers flying. And Ivar Heckscher, the pivotal man in Jay's life that I had the pleasure of meeting, and man that was was he the boss of the circus school in Stockholm for a while, and anyway, a fabulous man. He came up with this idea of balls that just disintegrate, and we thought, well, if we have this, and if we can make this and set everything right up until this moment, then people will be moved. And now the show is just about to have its opening night, but we know from the previews now that at this moment, as he is standing there, one man in the room, some music playing, and he's juggling, and people are being moved to tears. And when I heard that, I was like, feeling so proud. We've really managed to nail something here. And with Morgan James's show in Western Australia as well, struggling under the Omicron has just entered into Western Australia. That has been mainly spared throughout this second wave of maybe before, I don't know all the details, but to see how difficult it is now to sell tickets in this air, but still then seeing the reviews that he's been getting and seeing the notes from parents who have taken it, and how people reliably come up now and say, this is so beautiful. And to see how this way that, we're going on this massive journey where we're looking at intent, and we're looking at all these different things, and it seems a bit abstract. And as we go forward the next sort of whatever it's going to be, 8 or 10 episodes, we're going to finish this massive exploration of the philosophical underpinnings, and then we're going to move into other subjects. And I also think that I will have a little sideline, as I mentioned, about Jay. We might do a little thing, and I really hope to talk to Morgan as well about the creative process, because the best way to talk about the practical aspects of what it is that we can do with this stuff that we're talking about here, it's to talk to someone, and we are talking about the project together, and through that we can talk about techniques and all that. If not, it feels a little bit odd to just say, I think if you do this, if you do that, when I'm just sitting here by myself talking directly to you. It's much better in a conversational kind of environment. So that's a little bit about what you have listened to, put into some context. It's a little bit about what this giant project, it feels very giant in my head. And then when I talk to you, it's getting a little bit clearer as to what it is that I'm talking about. And from the beautiful responses that I'm getting for you guys, I got an email here now just recently, and a long email that went into such depth at how important it had been to get The Way of the Showman at this particular time in his life, and it moved myself, and he wanted to ask some questions about the possibilities of getting a tattoo, and I showed it to my wife, who also broke down in tears, and it has been such a beautiful thing to be on this journey, and it still is. And to hear from you, I thank you so much. It's all of you who write to me, all those beautiful people who have who've gone on to buy me a coffee and sponsored me in this last time. It really makes it wonderful. It's wonderful when people reach out, and I realized that I have not asked you guys for help to write more reviews. But if you're listening to this now and you have gone through all of this, and this is an episode where it's just me talking to you, I'm not delivering mind-blowing ideas or deep concepts. I'm just talking, and if you're listening to this and you haven't written a review, or you have written a review before and giving me 5 stars, and you have another account name, then it would really help to get a review on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. If you write a review, say that you like it. Even just clicking 5 stars is really easy, I think. I have done it for several podcasts that I listen to, and it seems to be really quite easy. That would be really excellent. And also, if you this time could share this episode, or perhaps another episode from along the way, one of your favorites perhaps, with somebody that you care about, somebody that you think might find it valuable, that would be really supremely excellent. So write a review, share it on iTunes, send it in an email or a postcard to somebody, which I'm going to make some merch coming up soon. My wife is working on some stuff, and I think it's going to look very nice, and I'll ask you guys maybe to send me an email or something with maybe your address on it, and I'll send some merch stuff out to those of you who are out there. All right, maybe make a mailing list for when I finally print out this book of mine, as I'm writing out the episodes and tweaking them and fiddling with them. As I've told them to you, I tighten everything up again, and it will be a book. There's several of you who have asked about that too, so there will be a book. And maybe if I have a mailing list, I can warn you about it. It's been a pleasure to walk this leg of the journey with you. And this was all that I had to say, and more than what I thought I had to say. So, without further ado, I would just like to bid you adieu. And all that's left to be said is take care of yourself and those you love. And I hope to see you along the way.